America, and welcome to the Home Front. My name is Michelle Posey, and I am joined here today by some wonderful women as our paneled guests. You know, if you're like me, or you're like any of us really, and you've switched through a lot of programming throughout the day and thought, I don't really want to tune into any of this woke garbage. And maybe you really want to tune in to a show that's real and raw and uncensored and not muted, then look no further, because you have found it, your home. This is the Home Front. Ladies, I'm going to start off today. We're going to start with Allie again. Oh. Here's the question, okay? If money were of no object, okay, if it didn't matter, you had all the money in the world, what would you be doing right now? So your name and what would you be doing right now if you had all the money in the world? Allie.
I'm Allie, and I would probably be doing the same thing, but I would give most of it, or at least start some things, do some kind of community project.
Nice.
I think put some money into some things that are needed, community stuff, yeah.
You're a good person. I'm Brianna, and I would be on a yacht. I'm not as good of a person. No, I would be on a, listen, I would be on a yacht, but I would also have most of my money going to non-for-profits such as like orphanages, and I would probably actually have my own, and I would probably have a mansion, and all of the rooms would be given to kids that I would foster, and I would probably have 6 businesses.
Nice.
And most of my money would just be giving back to the people.
Awesome. Okay. And your mom, maybe?
Maybe
a little.
If there's some left over.
I'm Tanya, and I think realistically, if money were no worry of mine, I'd probably be doing pretty much the same thing. Not that money isn't a worry of mine, but expanding, I think, the clinic and giving that opportunity to people all around the country is probably one of my top focus points. And realistically, just trying to do what I can for the community. I don't know what that looks like, because I've dreamed about the lotto, but at that point in my life, I was thinking I'd be on a beach somewhere asking for drinks. So that's where I'm at now.
Life has changed.
A little bit.
I'm Connie, and if money were no object, I would truly be doing exactly what I'm doing right now, vacay every day my way, and I enjoy the heck out of life.
I love it.
I always said, you're asked that question all the time in life, and I said that I would love to be able to volunteer if I wasn't working full time. Those of you who know me here, because while I've lived in Florida, I have been able to do that.
Yes.
And I do volunteer in the community in a variety of ways, and I love it. If I had more money, I could give more money to candidates of my choice, and that is what I would be doing.
I love it. I'm hearing the same thing, really. What you don't know, maybe, if you're a viewer out there, is that this particular panel of guests, for the most part, we're all really working towards making change happen in our local communities, so that it will have a national impact. That's one of the Flynn mottos. So we're already kind of passionate about what we're doing, right? So that doesn't change. The money in the world can't change it. And that's why establishment and crooked establishment fears it, because there is no little lip that they can tug and get you hooked into. So that brings me to me, Michelle. If money was no object, the first thing I would do is I would start like a nationwide grassroots America First, like candidate consulting. You're not going to have to pay us, but we will go into every single nook and cranny across the country. Mm-hmm. We would find all those rhinos who cannot possibly face their constituents, who lie about their voting records, and we would primary every last one of them.
Every last one.
Change the country in one election
cycle. Yes, I'm here for it.
Okay. And they would all work for the for the.
We would totally be on your pack. Yes.
Yes.
I love it. Oh gosh, so we always dream big here, but today we have a special guest. She is coming into us live through Zoom. Her name is Michelle Martin. I had the wonderful privilege of meeting her a couple times in person, and then also logging into these weekly calls that she's a part of, where they kind of bring you and I in and speak in layman's terms so we can understand it, about what kind of voting, what kind of packages, what kind of bills are they trying to pass in Congress. And it's really nice for you and I to keep up to date on that. She's with Citizens for Renewing America. So let me welcome Michelle Martin to the Home Front. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited
Wonderful.
about this. I love talking about this.
This is wonderful because I tend to focus a lot on local and even statewide issues, but you have your thumb on the pulse of what's happening nationwide. And we just had, if I'm not mistaken, we just had some some Republicans really vote poorly recently. Can you fill us in on what just took place in Congress?
Yes, but let me just remind you that it's not just recently that they were voting poorly.
Right.
But let me just, can I talk about citizens for 1 second?
Absolutely.
Okay. I work with an organization called Citizens for Renewing America, and it is a grassroots organization. I'm the state director for Florida, but we also have a policy institute in New York. And so, just like you said, there's this Thursday call, and what happens is the policy team in DC tries to help the legislators understand how to write legislation from an America First perspective. And it touched on what you're talking about with the appropriations to say, right now, our federal agencies are weaponized against Americans. So, how do we stop that? Well, we use the power of the purse that Congress has, and we try to defund some of that. So, that's one of the things that my organization has focused on in the last year is how to defund these woke and weaponized agencies.
Good. Needed.
Great.
So, and then what ends up happening, just so you understand, like the kind of the strategy of how we do it, is they talk to legislators, try to give them verbiage, and then they are often working with the House Freedom Caucus. They all go on either Bannon or on Twitter or wherever their media is, and Russ will go on Bannon and they will say, "This is the fight that's happening in Congress. This is what's really happening. This is what you're going to hear from your member of Congress. This is the truth," so that we're better able to not be fooled, basically. And then on Thursday, like you said, there's a call that goes out across the whole country that somebody can sign up for. Then they can be on that call and they'll hear what's really going to happen. So I'll tell you a little bit, like you talked about the omnibuses.
This is
Had you
crazy.
been on this call, you would have heard about this, kind of in real time. So they were literally calling these mini buses, right? And what it means is instead of just voting on one thing,
No.
you lump all this stuff into one vote. And so one of them, the first one was like half a trillion. And then the second one was 1.2 trillion. So they're really not mini.
No,
And then
no,
on
no.
top of that, we just last week had a 60 billion supplemental in addition to those other two. And what ended up happening is this: the House Freedom Caucus, and this was actually under McCarthy, when McCarthy was speaker, they fought long and hard to defund particular line items that were going to come up during appropriations. So first they made a budget, a 10-year balanced budget. The guy who started our organization, Russ Vogt, was the director of office and management and budget under Trump. So he made a budget. It was a balanced budget for 10 years, balanced the budget within 10 years. And a lot of the way that you balance a budget, of course, you stop spending so much. And so he pulled spending from the federal agencies that are weaponized against us.
Yeah.
So the Republicans fought long and hard to get this. It passed the House, it died in the Senate, it came back to the House. And when it came back to the House, they worked through appropriations and they had won some really good things. Like we had won defunding our tax dollars to like go for attorney fees for all of these people who are coming across the border.
Oh,
good.
gosh.
Yes.
And to defund, like our tax dollars could not be used to go to the US Census Bureau to count the illegals in particular districts, to bulge those numbers for the census, right? Another thing that they had defunded was our money being used to enforce EV mandates or to make sure that we're not using gas appliances, like ridiculous things, right?
Right.
Why would we want our dollars to be used for that? We don't want that.
Exactly.
And what ended up happening when it came back to the House, a bunch of Republicans surrendered all those things that we had fought for. So now our tax dollars are being used for all of these things. It's so frustrating. And so
Rhinos.
I could talk about all of those line items, but at this point, both of those passed. Both of these enormous things passed. And then just last week, this $60 billion thing passed. And I just want to talk about this for 1 second.
Yes.
The tactic of how it passed is like it transcends DC. This happens at the state level, it happens at the county level, it happens at your local, rec level. And the tactic is that they take something that people want, which is, let's say, aid for Israel, and then they say we're going to vote on that, but they attach another vote to it that people don't want. And then, then your member of Congress is able to say, well, we had to because I couldn't go back home and say that I didn't vote for aid to Israel.
Oh, I can't stand that excuse.
The
I'm
devil
sorry.
made
It
you
is
do
so.
it.
Yeah, I was at an event
baloney.
yesterday and I was talking to people and I said, oh yeah, $60 billion last week. And they said, well, we had to support Israel. Okay.
Oh
Okay.
man.
And P.S.
Yes,
we
but
borrowed the 60 billion. We borrowed the 60 billion to support Ukraine, Israel, and Taiwan and the rest.
Doesn't even make sense.
Well, so to your point, Michelle. So is this kind of the same playbook that I see sometimes, like even in our local REC, where instead of voting for maybe one bylaw to be changed or one rule to be implemented, they just put them all together because we got to get them pushed through, and then we're not able to break it apart and really see what each one does. Is that kind of the same?
It is. And Russ calls this process is policy. Okay. So we know, and we can talk about the REC, the local government. We know that whoever controls the process is going to control the floor. And then whoever controls the floor kind of determines the outcome. Where that showed up in DC is they had in the process that it had to go through the rules committee, and the rules committee could have said, we're going to vote on these two things separately.
Right. But they chose not to.
No.
That's right. And so the members of Congress could have said, no, we're not going to do that because then we know that all that money is going to go to Ukraine and nobody wants it. But they weren't willing to say no to the rules committee. Actually, 55 Republicans did, which shows we're making progress.
Which is good.
Right.
But it's also an election year, so.
Yeah.
They're
Which
pandering.
you would think that would put the other ones in line, but it didn't. But so if they had voted no on that, there was a potential that those two votes could have been separated. So that is a process, but everybody rubber stamps it because you're like, well, that's just the way it works. That's just the way it works. And in truth,
Not
if
true.
you would fight at these different leverage points, the outcome would be different, which anybody who's part of the local Republican Executive Committee understands. When we did not know Robert's Rules of Order, it was absolute chaos, absolute steamrolling because we had no
Still
leverage
is
points.
here.
But
Yeah.
as soon as you learn it, you're like, excuse me, point of information, point of order. That's not how it works. And so once you understand process, then you get the policy or the outcome that you want.
Except when your chair just rolls over you and keeps going.
Yeah,
Well, that's true. I mean, I've
that's-
noticed that too, where you can use all of the information that you have and all of the political power that you're able to wield because you sit in these positions of power, which is where, you're supposed to sit in order to make change. You have people that will not recognize that, and they'll try to push you out because you are trying to make change that they're not willing to move on. I've seen that in my own
Absolutely.
executive committee up in Hillsborough County. I mean, I think it's actually around the nation. I mean,
Yes.
it's something that we're seeing all over the place.
Yeah, I was going to bring in Connie for a minute.
The
because I
thing is,
know-
though, and we'll say, oh, we're not making any difference. It's not making any difference. The chair is still abusive or the Republicans still aren't making movement. But it isn't true because every
Right.
time it happens, more people in the audience or more voters see, wait a second, this is not in line with our principles. Why are you shutting down that dialogue? Why are you shutting down that conversation? Why are you letting this move forward? So unfortunately, this is how people wake up, is that they see it over and over and over again being abused. So every time you think it's not working, just recognize more people are waking up, and it's all a good thing.
Well, and Michelle, I can speak from example because I've been to our local REC, a member of our local REC, but one of the first times I went, Connie, who's sitting here, she was just very matter of fact, but very polite, and just stood up and said, point of order about something that they were. And I thought, what is a point? First of all, what's a point of order? And second of all, I can't wait to see how our chair responds. And it was his response that made me realize where the problem lied. It wasn't in a, you know what I mean? So I know Connie could probably speak to that too. Yeah.
And if you dare to speak up, you are the problem.
Yes.
You suddenly, it's you.
Yep.
Everyone else is okay with this except for you. No, that's gaslighting. And you have
Exactly.
to push back. You have to be willing to stand up and say it anyway, even if it's uncomfortable, even if you know, in my case, you're going to get embarrassed.
And courage is contagious. Look, you went from yourself
For
to
sure.
look at how many you duplicated, right? How many times you duplicated yourself. And I mean, people just have to see it. They have to see it play out.
Force multiplier.
Yeah. Yeah.
It works.
Exactly. Have you guys, do you guys know that? So this is another process is policy that right now, anybody who's a rec member, an REC member, committee member, their term expires in December.
Yes.
Yes.
If they don't reapply to be a committee member during the what's that week called?
Qualification.
Qualifying week. And at this point, anybody who's a member there has to reapply, but also this is the time that you can bring more people in. So once you understand the process, then you have a different outcome. So that's another place that you can use the process.
See,
And,
I-
and if I can jump in,
Yeah, sure.
if there are more people who put their name in a precinct than there are spots in that precinct, then the voters get to have a say. The voters actually get to choose their precinct committee men and precinct committee women in that particular precinct. So that's my personal
Good
goal,
information.
is to see a full complement in every single precinct. We have 103 in Sarasota County, and they're different in every one. So yes, there are too many open precinct committee men and women seats throughout
Everywhere.
this country.
Yes.
And we have to fix that.
So Michelle, what we're just to bring our viewers in, because I know when I first, all these acronyms, I'm like, what is an REC? So Republican Executive Committee, this is the group that's in what, every county?
Yes.
Okay, every county, and they make the decisions there for your county. So you're talking about your city commissioners, your county commissioners, even local candidates that want to run. So while we're all, you know,
and
looking,
community members.
yes,
Yes.
we're looking at
go-
Trump.
What do
right?
you mean make the decisions?
Make the decisions for the party.
They're
So
the policy-making
Okay.
body.
Yes.
Legally, they are the policy-making body for the party.
when we say we the people, the party is made up of the people. But only the people that are within the party have the political power to apply political pressure at the appropriate political pressure points. And you can't do that if you don't understand your bylaws. You can't do that if you're not a member. You can't do that if you don't know what you're talking about. You can't do that if you don't know policy. So it's important that the community members who want to be involved in the political process understand that local is exactly where it's at. You have to be involved in your local Republican Executive Committee. I talk about this all the time on X Spaces, when I do radio shows, local impact, right? What is it?
Local action
Local action
equals
national impact. And he is 100% correct on that.
so
I lived it. I know it.
Yes.
let me ask you, Michelle. Do you where do we? Is there a place where we direct people to find out about their local RECs? Is it just their local Republican Party website? Maybe
I think you go to
through their-
florida.gop. Is that correct? To find it here. Oh, I guess you would just find if
national.
it's national. Yeah, just Republican Executive Committee,
Okay.
local Republican Party.
One of
or
the
local
things that
county.
I found very shocking for myself in learning this process is a big deal. Does anybody out there realize that the Republican National Committee is comprised of 167 people?
Yes.
Period.
I did not know that.
Yep.
167 people
Yep.
in the entire country are the Republican National Committee. It is a very tiny, tiny universe that makes these massive pronouncements of the policy of the Republican Party. So it is imperative that, and you can't get to that level if you're not involved at the local level
Yes.
first. So it's critical that people truly do this. And if they really want to do that, they can email me. I'll help you.
And, you know, and people say the Republican Party doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
Oh,
But
yes, it does.
we are like, you know, entrenched in politics. But 90% of the people aren't. So they
Are
just
not.
show up to
That's
vote
correct.
and they only vote by party. So if the party's been hijacked, and it has,
Yes.
Yes.
then the only way to change that, and because you're not going to get 90% of the people to be this interested in politics when there's yachts
Right.
and other fun things to
Do it.
pursue.
Yachts.
But the way that you change it is you get involved at your local county level. That county level begins to be very interested in what's happening, very involved. They put out resolutions, they make comment, they frame and shape the candidates that are picked up at the local level. Listen, those local candidates become the state people. The state people go over to DC. It all starts, all politics is local. So even when I'm talking about the federal level,
Yes.
your member of Congress is going to be home this summer. And when that member of Congress come home this summer and they start, talking about how great they are for supporting Israel
Knock on their door.
now, if you're on our Thursday calls or listening to this show, you're going to know, no, you didn't vote for Israel because you were supporting Israel.
Yes.
You lumped
Right.
that Ukrainian supplement in there and basically did exactly what we told you not to do.
And don't be afraid to connect their votes while they're in office to what they say when they come around you for election season. Right, you've heard me say this all the time. You have to connect their votes to the election cycle. Connect their votes while they're in office to the election cycle, because they're going to come down when they're not in session. They're going to come around you. It's state, it's local county, it's your federal county. They're all going to come to you and they're going to pander. Exactly what Michelle said. They're going to come to you and they're going to tell you how wonderful and how great it was to defend you and to defend the things that they stood on. But what they really did was they sold your rights away.
Yes.
And you have to ask them the difficult questions. Don't be afraid, because so much of what I've seen is they're like, well, I want to just take a picture with so-and-so, or I just want to, you're like afraid to give up your access to this person. Newsflash, you have access to them because you hired them to serve you. You already have access. Stop letting them placate to you. You are in charge. When in the history of business do we ever allow the employees to dictate what the CEO does? Not ever. We are the CEOs of our country.
Well, this is where the dichotomy
Right.
process, what Michelle said,
Exactly.
is perfect. Because what's happened is we, the people,
Yes.
are the top of the pyramid, not the bottom.
Not the bottom.
The problem that we have is politicians who see it the other way, and we have somehow allowed that to take place.
Because
And
it's like-
wrong. We had a politician in this county last week who stood in front of a group of about 60 people and flat out lied about it. He said, I
heard
have
about it.
never missed a vote.
Oh, I
and
heard about
I
it.
pulled it up and I'm like, 15 seconds, I can show you that's not true. And he stood there and said it in front of everybody. Do you think I can't get on my phone
And
look
figure it
up?
out? Right.
And then I'm going to tell everybody I know because,
Put it in a pamphlet. Right. Put it in a
Yes.
Put it in a pamphlet. Knock on doors. Tell your neighbors, look, this person lied about this.
Lied.
Do you know that this person wants this for these this person didn't protect children, didn't
Correct.
protect our girls,
Didn't
to keep
show
boys
up.
out of the girls' bathrooms and out of their safe places. Like, this stuff is important for us to do. We can no longer be complacent. You have to be uncomfortable.
Right.
Yes.
And
And what
Michelle,
Bonnie just said is the way.
Yeah.
That's the way. You have to know so that when they're speaking, you can say, no, that isn't accurate. Like, we're going to have politicians come home this summer and they're going to be out on the campaign trail saying they're against the invasion.
Oh, but what did you
They
do?
just funded attorneys for the people who are coming across the border.
No.
They
So
just
it's double speak.
Well, I would
Sorry.
call it a flat out lie.
Well,
Why?
it is. I mean, you can't say that you're for protecting our border and yet you're voting to fund lawyers
Yes.
for the criminals that are coming over. Because I mean, that's really what they are.
That's
Michelle,
exactly right.
Michelle,
And
what
they'll
I
say that they
love,
were against COVID
Yeah.
mandates, but they're funding COVID mandates. They'll say they were against what happened during COVID, but they just gave another $40 billion to Health and Human Services.
Or they simply stayed quiet and did nothing.
Did nothing.
To me, that's a lie of omission. And that's as bad as a lie of commission. You
Agreed.
did something or you didn't. They're
I
both
agree.
equal.
That's so true.
So,
Because if you do something and you screw up, like, at least stand on it.
Right.
Like, you know
Exactly.
what? I
Own
messed
it.
up. I messed up, and I'll do better next time. Let me prove to you that I can make a better choice. That I'll
Sure.
respect. But if you're gonna come to me and you're gonna flat out lie, like now I know you're a snake, and now you can't be trusted, and now I'm gonna put everything that I know and everybody I know behind, making sure that you do not ever become a representative ever again. And the party of the
Amen.
power can do that. The
that's
people
right.
in the party can do that. You can censure someone from ever running as a Republican or as a Democrat if they violate their oath of office,
Right.
if they violate the party platform. You just have to know what that is.
And you have to have
Scared of you.
Oh,
power
girl.
to get it done.
To get it
And
done,
that's
Like,
the
yeah.
key
oh,
is
okay.
we want to be
So
able
it's
to
our
get
job
that
to tell
done at the
everybody
local
this
level.
and let them know. So
Well,
I'd
and-
like to
and
invite
Mich-
everybody on your show to the call for Thursday.
Yes.
That's what I was going to say because Michelle, the nice thing. So if I'm at home listening to this now, my blood pressure has just gone through the roof because I am ticked
mine
off.
is.
that There are actually
Right.
people out there who have not shown up to vote and lie about it. So
Yes.
our representatives are not doing what they need to do, but citizens.
They think you don't
for-
know. That's why they
Yes.
think that they
Right.
can keep doing it.
Exactly.
But Citizens for Renewing America, you make it easy because it's not like we have to go out and gather this information for ourselves. You have a one-stop place where we can all come to get kind of get fed weekly on what's going on, and then I think that's a good base place for people to start. So why don't you tell our viewers how they can get hooked up on that Thursday call?
Okay, so it's Thursday at 5 o'clock Eastern. We call it an intelligence briefing. Your phone will ring at
Ooh.
5 o'clock. It might say like unknown because it goes out across the whole country to thousands of people. You pick it up at 5 o'clock, and Russ or somebody else is on the team, and they tell you like basically an intelligence briefing of what's happening in DC, so that you know you can tell your friends and family, and also so that you can call your rep so that they're hearing from the ground what they're being told in DC. And the way you get on it is slingofdavid.com/sign up.
Sling
of David.
Sling of David.
I love
Guys,
that.
that is
I
so
love that.
amazing. I'm doing that right now, guys.
Sling of David.
slingofdavid.com/sign up.
Gonna get you with the
/
rock.
sign up. Slingofdavid.com / sign up. And then that will get you into the Thursday morning or
Yeah, then you
Thursday
sign up,
evening
and then
calls.
your phone will ring Thursdays at 5 o'clock.
Perfect. Gosh, Michelle,
It's
you
over
are
at
amazing.
5:30.
Perfect. So it's short and sweet. And you know, if you're sitting in traffic anyway, this is
Traffic,
I've done
walking
that.
the
5
dog,
o'clock
eating
traffic.
Yep, just put it on
Cooking
speaker.
dinner.
Yeah.
Michelle, thank you so much for joining us on the home front today. The next
Thank
time
you.
I
If
see
I
you,
can ever be at the table, I'd love it.
that was what I was going to say.
Yeah.
The next time we see you, you're going to be sitting right here, okay?
Good. I can feel the energy. I love it.
Good.
Thank
I
you.
love
Yes.
it.
Fun.
Thank you so much, Michelle. You have a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, you too.
Yeah, that was pretty awesome. We're going to take a quick break, but before we do, I want to ask everybody watching and even our panel guests, have you bought and sold any property in the last, 10 years? If you have, congratulations, you have actually probably donated to the Biden campaign. Did you know that? You
No.
probably have donated definitely to the Clinton campaign if it's been in the last 12 years. Why is that? Because a lot of our real estate companies, a lot of our real estate associations, if you pull their public records on what their funding source is or where they put their money, they're donating to all those woke organizations and all of those left liberal politicians. So that's a lot of money, right, when we go through closing. So
Yes.
I'm asking you to check out MAGArealty.com. I mean, it's all in the name, right? MAGArealty.com. They are nationwide. And let me tell you something. They give, when you close on a house with them, they throw in your very own AR-15.
Nice.
Nothing says stand your ground
know.
like an AR-15.
Right.
How much better can it get?
Check out MAGArealty.com. We will be right back with more Homefront. Stay tuned.
I'm General Mike Flynn. Patriotism in America is under attack. America is the greatest country in history. Every home in America should proudly display their pride. Every home in America should fly Old Glory. And that is why at MAGA Realty, we give every home buyer a 25-foot flagpole and an American flag. Contact us today at MAGA Realty, where we will fight as hard for you as we do for America. Go to MAGArealty.com, MAGArealty.com.
Welcome, America, and welcome back to Homefront. You know, we're going to move on to another topic. I had to actually write this down because I don't think you're going to believe me when I say it. You might already know at home, but did you know that due to pro-Palestinian protests on college campuses, we've got USC, University of Texas at Austin, Harvard. They've not only attacked police. Police have had to get really physical with protesters, but Columbia University is now sending for the rest of the school year $70,000 a year tuition. The rest of the school year, you're going remote because they can't contain the protests happening on these campuses. So I just had to give a little bit of news and say, what do we do about this? What do we attribute this to? I mean, I think I know, but
Indoctrination. Indoctrination, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, this what is going on at these institutions, right, is what I'll call them, is the fruit of the seeds that the administration has sown.
ooh,
So
yeah.
they are
Good
getting
point.
exactly
Yes.
what they've
Yes.
prepared themselves for. And it's a problem. I think they should expel every single one of them, send them all home,
Yes.
and keep their money.
Why
not?
Yeah, for tuition. That's genius. You know, I wrote down. This was the other night. Stalin actually said that if you give me 4 years to teach the children, and the seed I have sown, that seed I have sown will never be uprooted. And I think about how many years we put kids. I mean, whether we choose to or not, in public school or send them to a government school.
Right.
I'm not anti-public school, but if you send your children to the government, they're going to learn to depend and uphold the government, not necessarily
Like
you
I
and your
say,
family.
if you send
Right.
your child to Caesar, you cannot expect them to come home not like Romans.
That's-
You can't expect them to be Romans. It's
like,
the same.
say your thing.
Yeah, oh, thanks.
And
No, but
I
it's
was guilty.
true.
I was guilty. My
mean-
kids went to school. They went to government school, fat, dumb, and happy, did not understand what was happening. So I was asleep at the switch, and I know I'm not alone. So
Well, yeah, I
that's
went to
part
public
of
school.
why I'm involved now
Good.
more than ever. I'm a grandma.
Yeah.
But my grandchildren matter, and they're homeschooled.
And just so that the audience understands too, Stalin is a communist. This is all rooted in communism.
Yes.
If you take a look at the Naked Communist, by the way, Moms for America has a series going on for that, so join momsforamerica.us and go find that webinar. It's very informative. But if you want to read it on your own, you can find it at any bookstore, The Naked Communist, and it lists, I think it's 43 rules of communism that was actually read into Congress in 1943, I believe it was, and that's part of the rule. But also it's biblical, right? Raise a child in the way that they should go and they shall never forget, or they will never turn away from it.
Yep.
And that's essentially the same thing. So you see both sides of the coin, right? You can see something that's being used for evil, and you can also use it for good. But what are we trying to get here? Do we want a civilization or our children to be used for evil, or do we want them to be used for good? And liberty, right, is a source of good. Choice is a source of good.
Yes.
It's freedom. And communism is rooted in oppression and
Right.
control and darkness, and which is everything that you're
Everything
seeing.
is going on.
Well,
It's
and
all
so
about control.
What do you say
100%.
to the? And I've had this conversation because they say, get out of your comfort zone, get out of your echo chamber. Well, I do, and then it raises my blood pressure. So, what do you have to say to people who say, well, it's their free speech, right? They're practicing freedom of speech, being out there protesting. I mean,
But do they honestly know the root of what they are protesting for or against? Do they truly understand the extreme history of Israel and Gaza and Palestine?
What do you think, Brianna?
yes. Okay, so we're going back a little ways. This is
been
this
like,
is what
you mean,
happens
like,
when
what?
you don't take learning seriously when you're younger. Now,
Out of high school for 4 years. Give me a break.
what we're seeing, and this is so that's why I love that we have a different
Yes.
different age groups because
good.
we have to understand that we're all coming at this at different levels, but we all sense we joke about it here. We all sense something's not quite right. What happened with COVID wasn't quite right. All these young people, college age, was supposed to be the happiest time of your life. What are they so up in arms about? Why are our kids not able to read at grade level? Why are people dying suddenly of cardio incidents when they're in their mid-20s? Why all the questions that you're asking yourself is because mankind really wants to get to the truth. We're built that way. We're created that way. So I joke, but don't ever think that a question that you have is off limits. So do we want to give a brief description of who Stalin was?
Go ahead, Mom.
Stalin, I'm going to get the timing off, but so Stalin really, I consider him almost one of the fathers of communism. And this is going back even at the same time as Hitler. We all know about Hitler because we all know about Hitler because
Now you got it.
She just needed a reminder. That's all.
She needed
and
a framework.
I think we do focus on Hitler because obviously
forget
what
everyone
happened
else.
with the Jews is awful. But what we don't understand is that there were more regimes during that time than just Hitler. We've got Stalin, we've got Mao.
Mao from China,
Mussolini.
Stalin's Russia, and Hitler's Germany. That's exactly what we're witnessing right now.
Really?
Yes.
And prior to that, Lenin.
Yes, and prior to
But
that, Lenin.
you think about Mussolini in
Yep.
Italy.
In
It's
Italy.
all the same
It's all the same.
bad.
Yep.
Yeah.
You can call it this or that. It's bad.
It's bad. And so what they found out, Brianna, and to others, is that, if I can get somebody, for example, I'm just going to speak to you for a second. I know we have talked, and we have an epidemic, a pandemic actually, in this county of young adults who are currently displaced. They're living in their car. And we've stumbled across this, and they're very wonderful people, but they're just unable to get a job that can give them a place to live. Maybe they're not agreeing with their parents at home. So it's kind of this, they're just in limbo. And what that is creating is a generation that is ripe for looking to the government to be able to provide for them. That was by
Exactly.
design. That was
Yes, it
not by
was.
accident. When you get students in a public school system or any school system that have graduated but know they can't take care of themselves because they're not able to read, they're not able to write, they're not able to do basic math to give you change back in certain, institutions. Like if you're buying something with cash, I've seen them stumble over giving change back. They're not able to take care of themselves, and so
Yes.
they look to daddy government to do that. And that's kind of that communistic, socialistic viewpoint. It's all by design. So I hope that kind of
And your mom was right. If you think about it as nanny state, from
That's
cradle
exactly it.
to grave,
That's
the
exactly
government
it.
is involved in every single aspect of your life, whether you're going to go to school, when you're going to go to school, how you're going to learn, what you're going to learn, whether or not where you live.
It's an
what you
oppressive
do
father.
for a living even is all selected by somebody else, not you, not your personal choice. It's the government. Some people find that easier. Oh, just let somebody else make the decision. But as Americans, it is the antithesis of the American dream. That's what that spark, that freedom that says, I'm an individual. I want to make my own decisions.
Absolutely.
That's the difference that I have always used when I explained Republican versus Democrat. I can no longer do that because there's too much of it that's the same
Right,
anymore,
exactly.
to be honest. But I would say, am I off base?
Oh, you're totally not. We're all like,
You're
we hear
totally
you.
right
Okay.
on it. Right
I
on
just
it.
love it. I love it.
It's where do you look for the decision? And that is, do I look to myself? I've got a problem. Am I going to look to myself to fix it? Or am I going to go whining to somebody else to fix it? It's easier to go to somebody else. It's harder to pull up your own bootstraps and say, doggone it, this is hard and I'm going to do it anyway. But that's what we do.
Well, and what they're also trying to do is remove God. And what does
Amen.
God give you? God gives you who you are. You're a child of God. Your hope and your strength come from God. But if
So
you,
good.
as an oppressive government,
So good.
an overbearing father, remove hope, what do you have? You're left with just government, and you feel hopeless, and then you fall into despair. And then once you're in despair, it's like this deep, dark hole you can't dig yourself out of, and you're most likely to either commit suicide, to kill other people, or to just die off because you
Or
have
be
no
angry,
right,
like
and
they
to be
are.
and to be very
There's
angry
what-
because
there's
you have
your
nothing
answer.
else to live for. You have nothing to live for, and if our God is sovereign, who makes us sovereign only because of the blood of Christ, right? Because we lean on him. We go to him in our time of need. He's where our strength comes from. He guides our steps and strengthens our hand and gives us free will, free choice, but we always know that we can come back to him. And so that's what, this whole thing is all about. It's about removing that and just looking toward government to be your savior.
It's so funny. Somebody, of course, on one of the social media platforms, posted this meme of like, I don't know, maybe a 3 or 4-year-old in the grocery store on the floor throwing a tantrum, and said that generation. And then they showed how they were laying on the ground in college, and said they just grew up.
Yeah.
So and I thought, expect?
There we go.
It was pretty funny.
I kind of want to bring something up about this whole Palestinian protest. Do you guys remember 9/11?
Yeah.
Are you
I
not
sure
at
hope we
all?
remember 9/11.
I know, but like, I know it's not taught in public school.
No.
What happened on September 11th, 23 years ago, is not being taught in school. I had to teach my children that. Yeah. My husband deployed twice during the war. It was a 19-year war. And I remember being in high school as a freshman in East Orange, New Jersey. I had family in the city, and I was terrified that something was happening to my family and my friends that lived there. We were always in the city. And I remember us being almost forced to watch what was going on the news. In every single classroom, like, it was so quiet that you could hear the echo of every single TV down the hall saying the same thing. And now I'm sitting here and I'm witnessing domestic terrorists scream and shout, "Death to America," which is literally what they said when they blew up the Twin Towers.
Yes.
Whether it was a psyop and we had our hands in it, it doesn't matter. It still happened, right? And so how are the American people so comfortable watching our country burn on our phones? And we're not doing anything about it. We're just like, oh, well, just let the kids be kids. Like, what?
Yes.
We have veterans that are homeless, veterans that have killed themselves, veterans that can't get that war out of their head because it's been 20 years.
Yes.
And we're seeing it manifest on our own soil. It's so wild to me.
It's come here. It's come
It's
back
here.
And the day after 9/11, the one thing that we all, I don't know, we all witnessed was this, or it's almost like this pulling together. But there was the number of people that enlisted after that, and so for us to be so comfortable or asleep at the wheel to see it now on our soil again, but in our young people,
And
is
our representatives, who I blame almost all of you, have left this border wide open. Nobody is vetting anyone that's coming through that border. People from other nations that hate America, that have shouted "Death to America"
Yes.
when 9/11 happened and prior and
Yesterday.
and yesterday, right? How many of these people are at these protests?
How many of them have actually come here with that in mind?
Exactly. That's
That's been
precisely
my wondering
point.
with this
So-
wide
That's
open.
so
How
huge.
This
many
is
of
a
these people are
national
actually
security
Yes.
problem?
Yes.
A terroristic attack is imminent.
Yes.
I mean, we just have to. It's not a black pill. It's reality.
Yes.
That's right.
It is imminent. And when it does happen, every single representative that's voted to keep that freaking border open
Yes.
is responsible.
Amen.
Blood on
Biden-
their hands.
You know what,
Biden, count your days.
Blood
You know
on their
what?
hands.
Local and otherwise.
Allie? It's all about climate change.
Wrong show.
Wrong show.
Okay.
No,
that
read,
was
read the room.
Whoopi, come get your girl.
It's all
I
about
mean,
climate change.
Clearly, it's an emergency.
Know your crowd. Know your audience.
No, but
I
that
mean-
was good. That was so good.
Thank you, we needed that.
Definitely needed
Yeah.
It's
I'm
true.
sorry.
A little levity.
Well, while we're on
It
this
was getting a
topic,
little tense in here.
It
I was
was
cutting it
intense.
a
I'm
little bit.
sorry.
but I love
had
that.
to
I
say
love
it.
that passion. You know, somebody that's had a lot of passion and still has a lot of passion for our country. He has give and given and given, and he still continues to give. His name is
Yes.
General Michael Flynn. We call him America's General.
God bless him and
He
his
is on
family.
the road right now, and you know what? He finally is getting to tell his side of the story. They're on a 35-city tour. You can go to flynnmovie.us. That's our personal website. FlynnMovie.us. You can see where they're rolling in through next. You can also get some really cool General Flynn merch and swag. You can also get the DVD. So maybe you're not in the path of their tour, but you know what? You can get your family together. You can go to your local rec center, maybe have a little watch party at your church. Yes, churches, you should be getting involved in this
Yes.
too. It's our country. We are
Invite your
Judeo-Christian.
favorite liberal.
Invite your favorite liberal.
If you want to see their head explode.
It's also available on YouTube now. It's streaming now.
It's streaming
So,
now.
Oh.
and
Yeah.
you can also get the book on the merch site as well.
All right.
I said my piece.
So I'm going to let you go check out FlynnMovie.us, and we're also going to show you a quick trailer. We'll be right back with more of the Home Front.
President's former national security advisor, Lieutenant General Michael Flynn, pleading guilty today to lying to the FBI.
Flynn knew exactly how the system worked. He knew exactly what the intel world had been up to. He understood its funding. They had to get rid of Flynn.
There was a moment where I just felt like I was drowning. And so I'm in there with these other political appointees. They're all supposed to go in there and tell what they believe to be the truth. What they did was they took my assessment and they wanted me to change it. And I was like, I'm not changing it.
He was, by definition, the most dangerous possible person for Donald Trump to hire.
President Obama said, but I do have one specific recommendation. Stay away from Michael Flynn. He's bad news.
Over time, instead of being pounded down below the surface of the ocean, we started to fight. I'm now above the surface.
Welcome back to the Home Front. You know, we were just talking a little bit in the break, and Tanya came in with her climate change, and I thought, let's talk about climate change. So what were you just saying during the break?
No, I mean, I made it as a joke, obviously. No, but really,
cut some of that
super
tension.
emergency. No, but if you know, if Biden does declare a climate emergency, he gets over 170 different executive powers, just like with COVID. You know how we all got locked down and stopped the spread, and everybody go inside.
So give me an example of like what could he use as a climate emergency?
I mean, let's just say they're already talking about all of the super crazy hurricanes that are about ready to come out. They even have one that they're getting ready to name, and they're saying it's going to be, and every year they say it, right? But, you know, why not be this year? What does this year have to do with anything, right?
A big election? A big election?
Yeah. So, I mean, if, let's say hurricanes come out and get, you know, you have earthquakes, look at all the earthquakes that have been spun up, they could easily declare, you know, a climate emergency. And then that's just something to think about. Hopefully it doesn't happen. But that's how easy stuff can just go down. It's like General Flynn says, black swan event, you're not expecting it. It's going to come out of nowhere. It's nothing you can prepare for, and then you have the mass formation psychosis, which is what you're seeing
That's
now.
what we were saying.
It's all part of it. I think after going through what we did with COVID too, you can see how this happened in Nazi Germany with the whole regime and how people killed their own neighbors. Yes. You can see that now because I've had a lot of death threats on me just for going and speaking and protesting or going before a board. You know, and I don't like to talk about that stuff. I try to remain positive, but if someone's willing to come after me for something, my constitutional right, then, I mean, for sure, I could see what they went through.
You know, I was one of those, I am one of those parents that I used to always have, a 9/11, we used to always watch, you know, like some recaps of it. I really wanted them, as they got
I do
older,
it every year.
I really wanted them to understand it, right?
Yeah.
But here's the thing I noticed with that. After 9/11, it was, you know, you need to give up some of your freedoms
Patriot
for
Act.
your protection.
Right.
Yeah.
COVID.
That was supposed to be
masks,
temporary.
Masks, right? 6-foot circles that you couldn't walk outside of. You know, don't go sit on the beach. Give us a little bit of your freedom for your safety. And it's like, I think this has always been a playbook. I'm just woken up.
And I would say J6 was the same thing.
Absolutely.
That was a psyop. And
Absolutely.
that's my own belief that it was a psyop.
It's proven.
And these people are being rounded up and put in jail so that they're afraid. So that you
Especially
and
keep
I are afraid to dare to speak out,
I
to
don't
go
know
to
if
something.
Our
Yes, yes.
audience knows, or even if
Absolutely.
our panel understands, but 11 people in Arizona, 11 Republicans
Yes.
that submitted affidavits that questioned the 2020 election in Arizona have just been indicted.
Yes.
And that's being done to silence,
To silence
people
exactly.
from their First Amendment rights. So
that
that's
we-
what's going on.
Well, so indicted means they've been
It's
charged.
trauma.
They've been charged with, and it's like a like conspiracy, but all because they've questioned the 2020 election.
Which is it comes from the same playbook that right here in the free state of Florida, we came very close to having legislation passed that said, listen, if you're going to question election results, we can consider that harassment.
right.
And they're gonna go after you.
It's
Yeah.
that fear factor. It's crazy.
And they're going to change laws, and the way they're going to word it is going to be able to be used and contorted against you.
Correct.
They do it every single time. And so, we push back, but they push forward, and then eventually what they're doing is they're gaining a step every single time. They push extreme, and we push back, and they get the middle. And so
Because
they're taking these
yep.
steps forward.
Not enough people
over and
are
over.
saying enough is enough. Not enough people are just
Well,
stepping
what do
out
you
on
do?
faith.
I mean,
right.
really, at this point, my husband says it's like militia. You gotta you form a militia.
There is
There's
a militia that formed, wasn't there?
there's a couple of them.
couple of them, yeah. I mean, they're very blue states, but they're just banding together and saying we've had enough.
And that my husband's from Poland, and he grew up, in the 70s and early 80s, and communism was still there.
Yes.
And he told me that there's just really he's a little opposite me because he went through different experiences, but he says it's a civil war at this point that needs to happen
He's been there.
because people won't wake up. Look how
it's right
stuck
here.
it's like they're
Yeah, it's
so
gotta be in
right
your face.
here.
It has to
brainwashed.
Or
touch
they don't
you.
see it.
Yeah. They have to have something taken away from them.
I think
that
General
they
Flynn
really-
says that people don't realize what's happening unless it's 50 feet from their door.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, and this is why I think President Trump has such a huge following now and such huge results through, like, when you see the polls and things in different demographics, because people are starting to understand. I do honestly believe the dam is breaking. I think the younger generation understands what's going on because 4 years ago, I mean, the ones that are able to vote now, they know what it was like 4 years ago,
Yeah.
right? They know what their families were able to do with the money that they had in their pocket. And I think most people are starting to understand, especially when you have this immigration issue, right? We have the
Crazy.
the crazy borders
Crazy.
open, and we're having now all of a sudden Democrat cities are like, oh well, yeah, we can of course help homeless people. I mean, not homeless people. We can't help the homeless, and we can't help our veterans, but we
Nope.
can definitely help the criminals
We'll
that
take
came
the
over the
migrants.
border.
Yes.
We'll help them.
Your taxes are going to support.
Well, exactly, but that's what I mean. And so it's like they're like, wait a minute, you can't help us out, but you're going to help them. They don't have any kind of roots here. They didn't put anything down here. And then it's the same thing with the schools. And you have more moms that are noticing their girls aren't safe. Like, wait a minute, boys can be in girls' bathrooms? Hang on a second. And you know what I'm saying? And so, and then you're like, well, wait, it costs $10 for a carton of organic eggs? Like, when did that happen? Do you know what I mean? So, like,
Getting some
parents and
chickens.
families, communities are really starting to notice. It honestly doesn't really matter how much money you have. You still feel that. You still feel it in your pocketbook. You still feel it in your purse. And then you're understanding what's going on with immigration. I think that's what's going to change it. I mean, people are starting to kind of wake
And
up a
that's
little.
what I believe the Democrats are most fearing with regard to November.
Yes.
Because people will vote their pocketbook.
They will.
And they do feel this Bidenomics.
They do.
I like the little meme of
There's
the
no-
piece of steak that's this
Here I
big.
go
It
again.
is. There's $100.
There's no inflation right now.
Please, everything's wonderful,
It's
isn't
so
it?
awesome right now. I saw the stats they put out.
That's what, like a younger generation, you've all been taught socialism is okay.
Ugh.
Being social is okay. There is a real disconnect to the understanding of the root of socialism,
Well, they got
which
us-
really is getting rid of the family.
Yes.
It is taking
Right,
family,
yeah.
taking your mom and dad, taking the relationship between husband and wife, parents and kids, whatever it is, and replacing
Divide and
that
conquer.
with government. It goes back to what we said. That is the real issue. So that socialism is bad.
I'm aware.
Give me the mother finger. What were you going to say? You were going to add some.
I don't remember.
And we gotta get away from reading the headlines too.
Yeah.
That's
hard.
People have to start really digging in. Just dig. Just take some time and read. Because then it's like, it's not the headlines. There's more to the story.
So do you think that your generation, younger generation is...
Thank you. That's what I was gonna say. So there it is.
I got you.
There it is.
I
Jog
got
my
you.
memory.
Don't worry about it.
So I feel like the reason why I'm so like kind of, or at least trying to get more like involved in it and like I care more, is because I stopped letting myself be angry to the point where I just go numb to it and just don't care. Instead, I let that anger be the fuel.
Okay.
Like,
good.
like it's okay to be angry. It's okay to be upset about it to the point where you're breaking down in tears. What matters is what happens after that.
Exactly.
What are you going to do after that? Are you just going to pretend like it doesn't exist, or are you going to do something about it?
Oh, that's so
And
good.
that can actually be the fuel. Like that
I
can
like
be the inspiration to, you know, do some research and actually get involved.
That's amazing.
And maybe
Did you
even
guys
run
hear
for
that?
office.
Did you hear that?
Yay, Brianna.
I will one day. Maybe.
I know you will.
I love it. I love it.
I love that.
That's our goal. That's part of what the party is supposed to do.
Yes.
Identify young people, help train them, give them the opportunities, make sure that they're out there, and have them ready to step forward.
Connie,
so that's what we want to do.
I love that you said that, because as a candidate in 22 and as a young woman, I realized that when I walked into the party,
We don't
it was
have it.
all a bunch of older people.
And mostly men.
And mostly men. And they do not like to hear new ideas.
No.
They don't.
Especially not from a young woman.
They
It's a
know, and they
You're
don't.
a threat.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
They
I'm
do not want to change the status quo.
No.
They want to stay in the quo.
That they created.
That is the establishment.
Sorry,
It drives
trying to
me
touch it.
absolutely wild when they're like, oh, the party, we gotta revitalize the party. Okay, well, here are the ideas that you can reach the young people to revitalize the party. No, we can't do it that way. Well, the way you're doing it isn't working. Have you noticed? Because when you all die off, who's gonna have the party? Because most of you are vaccinated. So what are we gonna do?
Look
And
at what the Democrats
they,
did.
They don't get it. They're
with,
more interested in eating
they
other
reeled
people
in
in their own party
Right.
than doing what is right.
They wheeled in AOC. She took over the whole thing. She brought
Right,
those
she did.
younger.
She brought the younger in.
Not going to go any further than what I'm going to call them. It's just younger people into the Democratic Party.
They're wild, feral.
But they did that.
But
they,
we can do the same thing
We can.
on our side, and
Feral.
we have a
I like that.
responsibility to do that. This is where I feel our party has a failure of leadership, a vacuum
Absolutely.
of leadership, frankly, and that can be fixed. But
Especially when it's so funny when I hear people say, "Oh, but Trump is so old." Yeah, well, so is your REC chair.
well, and Trump could run circles
around
around
the rec chair.
90% of them.
Right.
I don't care what their age is. They could be 15. They could,
Listen,
that guy's got more energy than all of us here.
I think the worst thing that happened is that Allie got an uncensored platform. Just saying.
I think me personally, I think it's the best thing that could have happened.
That could ever happen.
Me
This is how it is every time on the home front. So I hope you'll join us for more. We always give some homework at the home front, so I want you to really reach out to Michelle's organization. She said that the website is slingofdavid.com/sign up. So go there, sign up for the Thursday night calls. Just start getting in the loop of what the heck is happening in Washington, D.C., and that you'll go from there. But start there, and we hope you tune in next time for Homefront. My name's Michelle. Thank you, ladies, for being here, and thank you for tuning in. We'll see you next time.
God bless.
God bless. Mwah.